So overall, I think most of us can agree that Bluey is a pretty harmless show, and although it's not perfect, the show has received tons of acclaim from audiences and critics alike, who often praise the show for its quality writing, relatable characters, realistic situations, and its strong ability to connect with not only children, but even parents and adults alike with its clever storytelling. In fact, despite only being a few years old as of writing this, the show has already won multiple awards and has definitely become mainstream, to put it lightly. However, although this popularity is great for the creators and of course, merchandise, it also means that the show is also subject to more scrutiny and controversy. As in an age where anybody can speak their mind and even the most mundane topics are hotly debated, it's been made pretty clear that even Bluey has been the subject of some arguments, most of which are kinda interesting at best and some that are just a bit silly, to put it lightly. So for today's video, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at some of these incidents over the years and give my personal thoughts on them. So without a further ado, let's begin, because we have quite a lot to cover this time around. When it comes to finding good information about Bluey, the official website is usually not my first choice, because while it does have a bunch of fun activities and the usual brand website stuff, it doesn't actually tell you that much about the characters. In fact, most of them, especially the newer ones, aren't even mentioned. And yes, I know I've said this before, but in my opinion, Judo's description is probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen, albeit unintentional. Like, they basically just wrote that she exists, I guess. That's it. However, compared to when these bios were first created, some changes have been made. For instance, Rusty was initially referred to as Bluey's cousin, although this was later changed. And around the same time, Chili's bio was also edited, albeit for a completely different reason. According to the original description, Chili was cited as being quote-unquote falling short when it came to parenting, mainly due to the fact that she had to raise Bluey and Bingo while also working a part-time job. However, this was criticized by some people who thought it made Chili, and others who can relate to her, look bad, and wasn't really an accurate representation of her character. So shortly after, this part of the description was removed, with Daley Pearson, the co-founder of Ludo, the studio that makes Bluey, even commenting on it, stating that, quote, "Thank you so much for catching this. We love Chili so much and we're revising now. We wanted to address this quickly and we updated last night for you and the Bluey family. Thank you." So, on the topic of Bluey's parents, Chili wasn't the only one who was subject to controversy, as Bandit has been in his own fair share of hot water. And this one really isn't a major issue, so I'll keep it brief, but basically, people used to think that Bandit was too good. And I know what you're thinking, BMB, that's crazy talk. Bandit is literally perfect. How is that an issue? And first of all, I didn't come up with this, so please don't burn my house down. I'm just a messenger. But once in a while, I do hear this question being brought up on Twitter or Reddit once in a while. Because let's be honest, despite what Bluey may tell you, I'm pretty sure the parents in my audience can verify that no, they can't play with their kids literally every minute of every single day, and subsequently fulfill their demands while teaching them valuable lessons.
I don't want a valuable line lesson. I just want an ice cream.
And although it's a cartoon, it's easy to imagine that some kids may have gotten the wrong idea, and then proceeded to get confused as to why their parents wouldn't constantly act like Bandit or Chili. And to be fair, the parents are pretty great if I must say so myself, possibly OP or goated as some of my fellow teens and young adults would like to say. And by the way, if anybody asks, no, I'm not 30 years old. Go figure. I don't know why people keep saying that, but it's not true. Like, I'm not even old enough to gamble yet. But apart from the fact that it's a cartoon, of course, the parents aren't really that unrealistic, as they do make mistakes once in a while, especially Bandit, who while having good intentions, has a tendency to mess up, but usually tries to fix it or learn from whatever he does wrong. And then there's Uncle Stripe, who is, less than perfect to put it nicely. He's getting there, I'm sure. And I forgot who first mentioned it, but someone did say that out of the family's entire day, we do only get to see 7 minutes of the absolute most fun, entertaining part, which I think is a good way to look at it. In fact, it actually kind of makes sense. Alright, now it's time to get into the more infamous news. So in August of 2020, yes, that year, the Season 1 episode Teasing, as well as the Season 2 episode Flat Pack, were pulled from airing after a complaint by a viewer. According to an article by ABC themselves, the user was concerned with a particular phrase said in both episodes, and the phrase being Ooga Booga. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying or showing that. And while the term may seem harmless for most people, with the phrase commonly being used in place of primitive or caveman-like language, it has also been used for some troubling purposes, as it has also been used to mimic the languages of those such as in African countries, as well as those in Indigenous or Aboriginal Australia, and as a result, is often seen as derogatory and even offensive towards these groups. Now, of course, I should mention that the Bluey team nor ABC had any intentions of offending these groups or being outright racist, of course. And despite all of the issues, the episodes would eventually return to air, albeit with the phrase now removed, although copies of early screenings can still be found online. If I had to make a guess for what was the biggest controversy related to Bluey, this would definitely take the podium, as I personally won't get into how much I agree or disagree on the topic, because I don't want the comments to be a complete riot, but it did gain a lot of attention when it occurred. So basically what happened was that in spring of 2021, ABC journalist Beverly Wang wrote an article about the show, where she mentioned that she adored the show, with some of her favorites being Granddad and Sleepy Time, which I can't argue against because those are just amazing episodes, they're so good. However, as according to her, she thought the show could use more diversity and therefore represent more groups, with her famous, or to some of you infamous quote, "We are all disabled, queer, poor, gender diverse, dogs of color, and single parents in Bluey's Brisbane." And when this came out, it blew up, as there were many who strongly supported both sides of the argument. For instance, many agreed with Wang, as they felt the show could be more impactful to different audiences with the greater diversity, and that it already portrayed a realistic version of Queensland, Australia, which could be improved by having characters representing different aspects of its culture. However, there were also many who were not on board with this idea, as many believed that she was thinking too hard about the show, insisting that Bluey should just remain as simple fun. fun, and that it dragged unnecessary politics into the program. Now, overall, I won't comment too much, cause I'm kind of walking on eggshells here, but personally, I do think it would be more interesting if we got different characters, but I have to give Bluey credit for already trying. I mean, in season 2 we got Jack, who was praised as a great representation of those with ADHD, and even in season 3 we saw characters who spoke Australian Sign Language. So I do think the creators are interested in the idea, and with the praise these characters have received, I think it is pretty likely that we will see more diverse characters. Now, what types of characters we'll see in the future is basically unknown, but I do think that we will start to get different characters as the show goes on. Now, whether these new characters will start their own controversies, I could honestly not tell you. On December 4th of 2021, the season 3 episode Past the Parcel premiered, and personally, this episode is one of my all-time favorites, as I thought the character interactions were pretty funny, and that it had a good message about the joys of earning and actually winning something. However, upon the episode's release, many also felt a bit conflicted, this time around the decision of the character Pat, aka Lucky's dad. First Chili, then Bandit, and now Pat. I really hope these characters don't use Twitter. But hey, if you use Twitter, then feel free to follow me and don't forget to like and subscribe. Wow, B&B. Shameless plug there. Hey, I can hear you from here, you know. You better not be going off script again. However, regarding the debate, some felt as if kids had a right to feel happy at a place like a birthday party, and that everyone getting something would help in this. While on the other hand, some felt that by having only one prize, it would help teach kids about how good it feels to actually earn something, as well as teach that life doesn't always go your way. And overall, I'm a bit on the fence with this one because I think both arguments are pretty legit, and that both sides have good intentions overall. One side wants to make the children happy, and the other side wants to teach them a good lesson. So I'm not really sure which side I fall on, but I am curious to hear what you all think about this little dilemma that occurred. So earlier, we just discussed how some people think Bandit is too good, and now it's time to discuss those who think he's not so good. Jeez, this dude just can't catch a break, my god. But to summarize, most of the controversy comes from an article by news outlet The Conversation, and I'm kind of hesitant to call it and the other incidents a controversy, even if it is one, because I'm gonna be honest and admit that most of this is just a cycle of Reddit posts that for some reason are picked up by major news outlets and made into a huge deal, which then gets more reactions by fans, which then generates more clicks and views for the media. It's actually pretty genius, not gonna lie. But going back to the article, published in June of 2022, Bandit's parenting isn't all sunshine and rainbows, because Bandit has a dark side. Mwahaha. By the way, they came up with that line, not me. And with that statement, they mainly mentioned his tendency to tease others in the show, such as his acts in obstacle course and, well, teasing, as well as the occasional need to be stopped by his wife Chili, who, while fun-loving herself, is usually the one to regulate the others' antics when they get out of hand.
This is not good parenting.
And as you can imagine, people were not very happy with this slander of Bandit Healer, to the point that there were articles written about the fan outrage from that article. And overall, this is gonna sound like sacrilege, but I can kind of see where they're getting at, because I have to admit that even as the world's biggest Bandit Healer fan, at least according to my comment section, he's not perfect. And I have to admit that I was not a fan of him in Obstacle Course, or some of the recent episodes. But to me, that really doesn't make him an outright bad character, because I also remember all of the good things he's done, and I don't think this was intentional, but in a later episode called Smoochy Kiss, they do kind of have a lesson about how even though someone can sometimes act annoying or have a few flaws, it's okay because, well, everyone has them, and that it's worth it if the good outweighs the bad. And I think the lesson from this episode perfectly applies here, as Bandit, while occasionally a bit troublesome and peeing on himself twice, and also farting on his children? Wait, what? He does do a lot for his family, whether it's helping to pay the bills, entertain the others, or teaching his children to be kind, as well as encouraging their creativity, which I think is an amazing thing. And in the end, he does usually apologize when he realizes he messed up. And as Season 3 continues, or even Season 4, I do hope we see this angle more fleshed out, all while still showing that while he does have his flaws, he's usually not trying to be bad and, more often than not, typically has good intentions. Last but not least, we probably have the biggest subject in this video, and one that actually had a notable impact, the subject being, of course, censorship. So when it comes to Bluey's distribution, the show is distributed by the ABC in Australia, not to be confused with the ABC many of us know here in the US. However, while ABC typically airs the original versions of episodes, aside from the occasional incident like mentioned before, they aren't the only ones who play the show, as in other countries, this job is often given to other companies, such as the BBC or of course, Disney. And while regulations differ between countries, all mainly stick to the US releases, since it's the one I'm most familiar with and the most notorious. And oh boy, is it notorious indeed, because it's a super long story, but I'll try to summarize. So when it comes to releasing shows, and because of this wide audience, they usually try to play it really safe. And because of this, as well as differences in culture between Australia and the US, there have been some moments that are considered perfectly fine in the land down under, but not here in the land of liberty and Hummer limousines? Do they still have those? And as a result, plenty of scenes have been altered or outright cut, such as the character saying peppers instead of capsicums in the episode Barbecue, and a scene of a pony pooping in the episode Markets being removed entirely. And while these changes were contentious at best, things really began to heat up when fans found out that entire episodes were cut from Disney's lineup, such as the infamous episode Dad Baby not being aired or even played at all. And as Season 3 premiered, the censorship only became more apparent, with more scenes being removed from episodes, and another being cut entirely. This time, it involved the episode Family Meeting, which revolved around Bandit being accused of passing gas on his children. And while the censors have always been controversial, this decision received huge amounts of criticism from tons of fans and media outlets alike, who believed that the decision was completely unnecessary, and that the subject of farting really wasn't a big issue. And it eventually got to the point that later on, Disney actually responded and changed their minds, eventually releasing Family Meeting on their platform. So in the end, I suppose us fans have finally won, but I feel that it's very unlikely that the other changes will be reversed as well, and for now, it seems as if censors will likely still occur, albeit not to the level we've seen before. But with all that said and done, I can't really say I'm as mad as some people about the censors, but I definitely do not agree with them, because even if some people do get offended, I feel like in these cases it would be a pretty small minority, and as long as the majority or most of the people are happy, then I think you're doing a perfectly fine job. And with that said, I think it's finally time I stop censoring myself and will begin saying swear words to keep the immature viewers away. No, you won't do that. Oh, come on, why not? Because I know you're tired of immature people in the comments, but if you drop one bad word, I'm gonna get complaints all over again like last time, and I'm the one in charge of PR, not you. So I'm gonna be the one that has to sort out this whole mess. Well then, shit, vermi timbers, me hearty. Hideaki, you're fired. Well, it looks like I just lost my job, but anyways, that was the history of Bluey Controversies. Now of course, there were a few I didn't have time to cover, albeit relatively minor ones, but overall, I think it's really interesting just to see how Bluey gets involved with so much drama, as it shows how polarizing our world can sometimes be, but also the fact that so many people watching the show have quite the wide range of opinions, which in itself tells how many people, regardless of outside politics or debates, do actually like the show, which I think is actually a really special thing. And I think it's really cool how, despite some arguments, a lot of us do actually get along together, which is honestly something I think we could all really use right now. And I should also mention that most of these don't even directly involve Bluey, as most either involve the distributor or an opinion posted by someone. So thankfully, the Bluey creators aren't really that troublesome if that's what you thought, and I'm sure all of them have wonderful intentions to go along with their amazing talents. I mean, this show is just incredible. But with that said, I'm interested to hear what you have to think about these situations, as long as you keep the comments civil, of course, because I know there might be some arguments, but hopefully we can avoid those. But for now, B&B Productions will be signing out. Have a nice day, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye, everyone. So for today's fan art of the day, we have this really snazzy but awesome piece by user Farnight on Twitter. Apologies in advance if I mispronounced your name, but I just wanted to say that I absolutely love this piece. Hideaki always looks so good in a suit, and it kind of gives off a retro, almost neon vibe, which I of course adore. So if you're watching this night, thank you so much, and if you can, go ahead and feel free to give them a follow on Twitter.